Let's learn something new today. Imagine you're at the family cabin for the weekend, trying to enjoy a rare but well-deserved break. But before you even set down your bag, someone hands you the dinner plan. Then your sister asks where the kids are going to be sleeping. Your uncle, well, he wants to know what the hike schedule is. Suddenly, you're not a guest. You're the cruise director. Again. Then on Monday, you're back at work, and your boss is out unexpectedly, and like clockwork, your team starts looking to you for leadership. Where's the spreadsheet? Who's going to make up the agenda? Make the decisions? They all fall on you. You're respected for your reliability and comfortable confidence. But you're also wondering, do I get a say in who I am anymore? Now let's consider Carrie's son's memoir called Private Equity. It was released last February of 2024. It offers a powerful first-person narrative about being trapped in a defined identity. For Carrie, the efficient helper, the behind-the-scenes organizer, she's working within a high-pressure financial environment. Now, despite her impressive credentials and evident capability, Carrie gravitated into a role that quashed her creative identity. Over time, that role pushed her toward burnout and a crisis of purpose. It wasn't until she recognized the pattern, that she had become the helper rather than herself, that she chose to disrupt it. Carrie's story mirrors the very essence of the concept that I created called relational gravity. How entrenched roles, even when they seem to fit or be expected, can limit our growth if they go unchecked. Carrie describes how she became the perfect organizational handmaiden, efficient, helpful, but ultimately, to her, invisible. Now, despite her brilliance, her identity was getting lost in a role she'd been drawn into over the years. When she finally recognized she'd become that role rather than herself, she chose to redirect her path. Welcome back to the Rethink podcast. I'm your host, Dr. David Zierk. This podcast is where we step back, pause, and explore smarter, more connected ways to lead and live by thinking with connection in mind, which is exactly what is meant by the word rethink, relationship-enhanced thinking, your relationship with yourself and others. So let's get going. In this episode, we're going to explore a hidden force that keeps us locked into the same interactions over and over again. This is a concept I call relational gravity. It's that invisible pull that keeps you in familiar roles, such as the caretaker, fixer, hero. You might resonate with the title peacekeeper. Fill in the blank that best describes the role that you've become famous for, even when you've outgrown them or grown tired of them. And these roles, they show up in every relationship: family, friendships, marriage, and of course, work. The challenge? You can't change what you don't see. So to start breaking it down, relational gravity is the psychological force that draws you into specific roles and responses and patterns, often without your consent or desire. Now, that's the most important part. If you've ever asked yourself, why do I keep doing what I do? Then you know firsthand about the deep pull of relational gravity. It's made up of old expectations, unspoken agreements, and even emotional inertia. This helps explain why I say in my clinic over and over again, the person is never the problem, and the past is always the problem. And when I refer to the past, I'm talking about those overlearned roles that you've mastered. To defy the pull of relational gravity, we use 4 intentional steps. First, we must recognize the pattern. One of the things that's really interesting about this concept, relational gravity, is I was drawn to the Newton's cradle that I just put up on the screen. And on top of the Newton's cradle, I put relational gravity. This is a toy that we've all played with at some time, but it identifies and expresses an important phenomenon, gravity. Now, on the right-hand side are these 2 balls, 2 blue ones, and let's label them self and the other person, because this is relational gravity. In a relationship, there's always more than one person, you and the other person. And when you're working together, as this model shows, amazing things can happen. And each one of these balls is going to represent the different steps towards regaining control over your relational gravity, so that you're in control rather than your relational gravity, your default roles being in control of you. So the first role is that we must recognize the pattern. This is what I call noticing your default roles. So we're going to put the word notice up here. Keep in mind the difference between knowing versus noticing something. For instance, I know that I often play the role of peacekeeper is very different from I just noticed that I stepped into the peacekeeper role. Knowing is passive, often hanging out in the periphery of awareness, while noticing is active and centralizes your focus into the present, where amazing things can happen. When do you shift into the fixer mode? When do you play what I call small? When do you tell a joke to lighten the mood? Recognizing such patterns requires self-awareness, patience, and, of course, lots of practice. So that we just locked in on the first step is notice. Second, after noticing the pattern, it's time to rethink. After noticing the pattern, we're going to begin rethinking the role that you play so automatically. For example, choose a new response. Let others lead. Maybe you want to sit in silence. Or here's a crazy one. Try saying no. Remember, there's a huge difference between the role you play and the person you are. To underscore the importance of this step, keep in mind that you always have a choice. You can always slip into the role that others expect, or you can practice being real, the real you. Do you want to play the role or be real? It's always your choice. So the third step, communicate openly and be transparent. It's what I call share. Now, what are we going to be sharing? We're going to be using learning conversations. Be honest, kind, and clear about what's changing for you, and let other people know what you've discovered about yourself and the role that you fall into. This process is what I call going public with your private experience. You have self-awareness. You've identified the role that you play. Now we're going to take it to the next level. We're going to be vulnerable and share it with other people. It might help to know that sharing self-awareness is contagious. Other people might step into their vulnerability and either validate what you're saying, or they might share something about the role that they play. In either case, sharing is contagious. Good things can happen. The last step, I'll just draw a line here, I'll put growth. The last step is about embracing growth. This is understanding that discomfort isn't a sign that you're wrong. It's a sign that you're evolving. So of course it's uncomfortable to begin realizing the role that you play, wanting to slow that down and sharing it with another person. And as soon as you share it with another person, you may not get the response that you need, want, desire, or deserve. But I'm still going to ask you to do it. When you choose to be yourself, rather than taking on the role of being who others expect, you're moving in the direction of being the person you were always meant to be. And that's the right path to be on. Sometimes people come to me in my clinic and they say, can you help me discover who I am? And I say, probably not. I mean, I'm still working on discovering who I am, but I do offer them. Even though I might not be able to help you understand who you are, I can help you get on the path of becoming the person you were always meant to be. And then as soon as I say that, we both smile, we both have an alliance, and then we get on having really great learning conversations. So this whole process isn't about rejecting relationships in the person you become. It's about releasing them from the limits of who we used to be. And as we say in the rethink framework, self-awareness is realizing when your past is trying to hijack your future. And dual reflection concerning what's true for you and the other person is how we think with connection in mind. So let me give you a homegrown example. A listener named Greg noticed that every time his siblings gathered, he defaulted to being the calm one, mediating tension, avoiding conflict, managing logistics. It might sound familiar to you. Either you take on that role or you know someone who does. But inside, he felt unseen and exhausted. When he paused and named the pattern of his relational gravity, the taskmaster, he chose to step back. Now, it wasn't easy for Greg, but over time, his siblings stepped up and started seeing him for more than just his usefulness. Let's shift to a workplace example. Tara. Tara's amazing. Tara had always been what I call the project hero. When deadlines approached, her team assumed she'd handle everything. And she would. From planning to organizing to expediting, Tara could do it all. Her teammates knew her strengths and gladly let her carry most of the load. Eventually, Tara recognized the relational gravity at play and invited a teammate to co-lead. Do you hear how she decided to break the pattern? She invited a teammate to co-lead. It was awkward at first, with Tara's inner control freak wanting to take over, but she held, which opened the door for shared ownership and gave Tara space to grow beyond just playing the savior role. This is the power of relational gravity. So let me invite you to a call to action this week. Take an inventory by asking yourself, when do I feel pulled into a familiar role that no longer serves me? Also, when does relational gravity take over who I really want to be? That whole idea of relational gravity taking over, that's what I call the provisional identity. Being the person that other people want you to be. And we step into that. We step into it blindly. And we step into it and we get rewarded, we get praised, we get validated. But you understand the loop that we get into. So I want you to ask yourself, what happens when my relational gravity begins taking over? And what's one way I can pause, reflect, and choose differently? And if you're feeling stuck, try saying this to your coworker or your sibling or your partner or a friend. I'm noticing I usually take on this role, but I'd like to try something different today. Can we talk about it? That sentence is a launch pad toward relational change and personal growth and being stronger together. And that's the function and purpose of rethinking and thinking with connection in mind. So thanks for joining me on this Rethink podcast. Remember, relational gravity doesn't mean you're doomed to repeat the past. With intention, awareness, and a little courage, and a whole lot of practice, you can step out of the orbital pull of relational gravity. You can be more than the role you've always played and invite others to do the same. Now, I also want to invite you to visit davidzierk.com/resources to sign up for our newsletter called Refresh, or download resources, or read a blog or two. Till next time, keep rethinking how relational gravity may be pulling you into your past, causing you to forfeit your future. This has been fun. Thanks for listening and learning.